The morning air in southern China is heavy with mist. Rows of young rice plants shimmer under a pale sun. Farmers stand on the edges of the flooded fields, holding wooden gates. Then, they open them. A flood of feathers rushes in. Hundreds, no, thousands of ducks pour into the water. They splash, quack, and paddle furiously. The delicate rice seedlings sway in the wake of webbed feet. To an outsider, this looks like madness. No fences, no leashes, no control. Just birds, crops, and what looks like chaos. But here's the twist. This wasn't a prank. It wasn't a stunt for social media. It was farming. And as it turned out, it was farming at its smartest. When video of this duck invasion hit the internet, reactions ranged from curiosity to outright confusion. Why would anyone let animals loose in a rice field? Won't they eat the crops? Is this some kind of pest control or just boredom? The truth? It was all of the above, minus the boredom. This wasn't some random gamble. This was a carefully planned agricultural system, one rooted in centuries of tradition and backed by modern science. It's called rice duck farming, and in China, it's been practiced for over 600 years. Long before pesticides and synthetic fertilizers ever touched the soil, farmers had already discovered a secret ally in the rice fields: ducks. They patrolled the paddies like feathered soldiers, eating insects, fertilizing the soil, and keeping weeds under control. It was a system in harmony with nature. But time moved on. In the 20th century, synthetic agriculture took over. Machines replaced animals, sprayers replaced beaks. The ducks vanished from the fields. It stayed that way until the early 2000s. A few agricultural scientists in China, Japan, and Southeast Asia decided to go back to nature. They wondered, could this old method still work, or even outperform modern chemical farming? Controlled trials began. The results were startling. Fields with ducks used far less pesticide, herbicide, and fertilizer, yet produced the same or more rice. And the costs? Significantly lower. Word spread. Farmers in Jiangxi, Fujian, and Guangdong decided to try it at scale. What happened next would change the conversation about sustainable farming. When the first flocks were released into active rice paddies, farmers braced for disaster. Rice seedlings are delicate in their early weeks. A few hundred birds trampling through them sounded like a nightmare. But the ducks? They barely touched the rice. Instead, they went straight for the real enemies: plant hoppers, stem borers, leaf hoppers, the tiny pests that eat profits alive. They even churned the water just enough to destroy mosquito larvae, cutting down on chemical sprays. Then came the weeds. Ducks devoured barnyard grass, duckweed, red rice, and their webbed feet stirred the soil, slowing weed growth naturally. The side effects were unexpected. That churning? It aerated the water, reduced soil compaction, and encouraged root growth. The droppings? Rich in nitrogen, nature's fertilizer, without the pollution that comes from synthetic overuse. In this new rice duck system, timing was everything. Ducks were introduced about 2 to 3 weeks after transplanting. They stayed for weeks, sometimes months, and were removed before the rice began to flower. It wasn't chaos, it was choreography. By season's end, the numbers told the story. Across southern China, farmers reported yield increases, sometimes modest, around 7%. But in the best cases, as much as 18.1% higher yields, according to a 2020 peer-reviewed study. Chemical use dropped dramatically, and in some trial areas, disappeared entirely. Fertilizer bills shrank, and at harvest, the rice could be sold as eco-rice or duck rice, fetching 10–20% more per kilogram. And the ducks? Healthy and plump from their natural diet, sold for meat or eggs, bringing in even more income. The environmental impact was just as impressive. Years of heavy chemical use had drained biodiversity from many rice-growing areas. Frogs, dragonflies, and birds had vanished. Water was stagnant. Fields felt lifeless. The ducks brought the fields back to life. Without pesticides, beneficial insects returned. Frogs and small fish came back. Birds like herons and egrets returned to hunt. The constant movement of ducks kept algae from building up and oxygenated the water, supporting aquatic life. It wasn't just sustainable farming, it was regenerative farming, restoring the balance that industrial agriculture had broken. The revival of rice duck farming made headlines in China, but it didn't stop there. Vietnam and Thailand began testing it in flood-prone regions. During bad seasons, the ducks provided a safety net: meat and eggs, when rice yields dropped. In Bangladesh, FAO-backed pilots trained smallholder farmers to integrate ducks, cutting costs and boosting resilience. Even sub-Saharan Africa joined in. In Madagascar and Nigeria, lowland rice paddies were adapted for local duck breeds. but perhaps the most famous case is in Japan. In the 1980s, a farmer named Takao Fukuoka Prefecture, perfected a version called the Igamo method. He released ducklings into the paddies 7 days after planting, at a density of 15 to 30 per tenth of a hectare, and removed them after 8 weeks. His yields matched or beat chemical farming, with almost no pesticides or synthetic fertilizer. His branded duck rice sold for 20 to 30% more in Japanese markets. Today, more than 75,000 farms across Asia use the Igamo model, proof that old wisdom, refined, can thrive in the modern era. Of course, it's not all quacks and sunshine. Ducks require care, feeding, health checks, and protection from predators like foxes, snakes, hawks, and stray dogs. They must be removed before flowering to prevent crop damage. Stable water levels are critical, a challenge in regions with poor irrigation. And not all farmers have access to premium markets that reward eco-friendly products. It's a system that demands planning, timing, and sometimes patience. Still, the lesson is clear. Rice duck farming doesn't rely on expensive machinery or chemical inputs. It thrives on cooperation with nature, and in a warming, unpredictable world, that might be more valuable than any high-tech solution. In the end, the farmers of China didn't reinvent agriculture. They remembered it. Those ducks weren't just waddling into the fields, they were walking into the future. So, what do you think? Could a 600-year-old method really be part of the future of farming? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And next time you see a duck, remember, it might just be an unsung hero of the food we eat.